Luke's duel with Vader in Return of the Jedi is one of, if not the best sequence in all of Star Wars, though it is also one of the least understood, at least in recent years. A common sentiment I've seen after The Last Jedi's release, in relation to Return of the Jedi, is that Snoke and Palpatine are essentially the same. It's something which I couldn't disagree with more. The context surrounding each character and the role they play within their respective films are vastly different, so much so that I need to correct something I said at the start of the video. The duel in Return of the Jedi wasn't between Vader and Luke, but Luke and Palpatine. Hello everyone, I'm Boofire191 and welcome to Nobody Understands Star Wars Return of the Jedi. In Empire Strikes Back, Luke asks Yoda if the dark side is stronger than the light, resulting in the Jedi Master explaining it was simply easier. This idea, and the temptation of falling down a darker, easier path, reappears throughout Return of the Jedi in a few different ways. The most obvious among these being Palpatine and Vader egging Luke on to lash out in anger, to kill them or his opponent and save the day. The messed up part though, Obi-Wan, and to a lesser extent Yoda, do the same thing. We all know the classic line, "What I said was true from a certain point of view," a line which upon examination is rather messed up. Obi-Wan willingly left out critical information so Luke wouldn't have any doubts when facing Vader. He truly believed his friend was beyond redemption, and telling Luke the truth would have just made things harder. In Obi-Wan's mind, Vader had to be killed. There was nothing left of Anakin. He was more machine now than man. Yoda, on the other hand, is a bit different. Like Obi-Wan, the dying Jedi Master doesn't believe someone who has fallen to the dark side can be redeemed. However, that's where the similarities end. Yoda didn't want Luke to know the truth until his training was finished. He didn't want him to have to bear that burden until he was ready. Going along with that, Yoda's wording is quite different from Obi-Wan's. Instead of killing, he explains that Luke has to confront Vader. What's interesting about this, and why I bring it up, is how blatantly Obi-Wan and Yoda contradict their own teachings. They tell Luke that the dark side is an easier path that leads to ruin, only to then walk an easier path. Obi-Wan and Yoda could have told Luke the truth at any point in his journey, but didn't. It was too hard to do so. They believed Vader was beyond redemption. They were afraid that if Luke found out the truth, he would either fall or be killed. This is important to bring up because it establishes two things: how far Luke has come and how close Vader is. Luke is putting into practice the teachings of his mentors and is walking a path almost every person in the film says is impossible to follow. He isn't blinded by anger or fear, allowing him to see what no one else can: the good still in Vader. Obi-Wan and Yoda, on the other hand, are weighed down by a past they can't escape. They don't believe Vader can come back because they've witnessed firsthand the terrible things he's done and have had to live with the aftermath. In a way, Obi-Wan and Yoda have lost sight of what it means to be a Jedi. They've let their emotions cloud their judgment. Much like Vader, if they could let go of the past weighing them down, they'd be able to see the same fact as Luke: redemption is still possible. By the time of Return of the Jedi, Vader is on the verge of coming back into the light, as witnessed when Luke surrenders and allows himself to get captured. The exchange between father and son, titles which the two characters use extensively, is incredible and establishes quite a bit in a short amount of time. First and foremost, Luke explains he feels the good still in Vader and does what he can in that moment to bring his father back. This is rebuffed by Vader, however, as he attempts to change the subject and explain the power of the dark side. What's interesting about this conversation is Vader's tone. Unlike Empire Strikes Back, he isn't saying things along the lines of "we'll rule the galaxy together as father and son," where he's the one guiding Luke. Instead, he puts emphasis on the Emperor.
The Emperor will show you the true nature of the Force. He is your master now.
Vader is filled with doubt. He's conflicted, and his faith in the dark side has waned. However, he can't pull himself away from it. Much like Obi-Wan and Yoda, Vader believes it is too late for redemption, and as he puts it,
I must obey my master.
What's holding Vader back isn't the desire for power or his darker emotions, such as fear and rage, but rather his past mistakes. What's holding him back is Palpatine. Devoid of any context provided by the prequels, we know Vader has done terrible things in the name of the Empire, in the name of the Emperor. If Vader rejected the dark side, he'd be admitting that everything he had done was wrong. He'd be forced to face his crimes and deal with the overwhelming guilt that followed. For Vader, that burden would be too much to bear, and he could never forgive himself. He had to obey his master because the alternative was seemingly impossible. Much like Obi-Wan and Yoda, the past is weighing Vader down, preventing him from seeing the truth. He can still be redeemed. However, unlike Obi-Wan and Yoda, who are weighed down by Vader, someone who represents their failures, Vader is weighed down by Palpatine, someone who represents his mistakes. For Luke, the Emperor is the final challenge he has to face to do something thought impossible: save his father. For Vader, the Emperor is the final obstacle he must overcome to do something he believes is impossible: find redemption. This is the difference between Palpatine and Snoke. Though we don't know the origins of both within the context of their original films, and both are ultimately killed after 2 outings, one represents the final challenge, the final obstacle for 2 journeys that parallel one another, where the other exists just to die and subvert our expectations. Though Luke and Palpatine do not physically clash lightsabers in the Death Star throne room, the battle is very much between them. Like the other 2 duels in the original trilogy, the one in Return of the Jedi has a lot more going on than just choreography. In fact, a large portion of it goes down before weapons are ever drawn. It begins the moment Luke meets the Emperor. As Palpatine himself explains, he was the one who set the events leading up to the Battle of Endor into motion. His goals were twofold: destroy the rebellion in one fell swoop, and break Luke, causing the galaxy's last hope to fall to the dark side. Palpatine, unlike Vader, doesn't fight physically. His weapon is his mind and the games he plays to manipulate others. It's most likely this reason why he refers to a lightsaber as a Jedi's weapon. Keeping that in mind, this duel isn't physical but mental. Both Luke and Palpatine are trying to outwit the other in order to achieve their objective, with Luke's being the redemption of his father. Though Vader is the one fighting, he is little more than a weapon, a pawn in Palpatine's plan. He isn't an active combatant, as odd as that sounds. To explain where I'm coming from, let's take a look at how the lightsaber fight itself starts. Luke loses his composure after Palpatine taunts him and reveals the rebels have fallen into a trap. Vader doesn't say a word and only engages Luke after he goes for his weapon. He isn't active in this fight like he was in Empire Strikes Back. He's reactive. As witnessed with this shot and the Emperor's delighted cackling, Vader is just a tool. He isn't the one dictating the direction of the fight. Palpatine is. At any point, especially after kicking Vader down the stairs, Luke could have turned around and impaled the Emperor, ending the physical fight. However, doing so would have lost the duel. Not only would this possibly mark Luke's fall to the dark side, but it would also destroy any hope for Vader's redemption. If the obstacle Vader has to face is gone, then there's no need to overcome it and come back into the light. When the physical fight finally shifts away from Palpatine, when it's just Luke and Vader, the presence of the Sith Lord can still be felt. Vader must obey his master because he believes it's too late for redemption, a sentiment Luke disagrees with throughout the fight. A sentiment Vader finally realizes is wrong after his son momentarily loses himself only to find his way back. In the end, Palpatine, Obi-Wan, and Yoda are proven wrong. Luke and Vader are able to defeat the Emperor in their own respective ways and do something thought to be impossible: take the road less traveled and find redemption. If the Emperor wasn't in the film, if he wasn't an obstacle that had to be overcome, then Luke would have redeemed Vader on Endor. There would have been nothing holding him back. As I've laid out before, outside of surface level traits like being a mysterious evil overlord who dies relatively quickly, Snoke and Palpatine are not the same or even similar. The Emperor had a role to play. He was the final challenge Luke had to overcome to save his father. He was the final obstacle Vader had to face to find redemption. His existence had a point, and he had a part to play. He had meaning. Snoke and his existence, on the other hand, was pointless. He could have been completely cut out of the films and nothing would have changed. Kylo Ren would still be a bad guy, just like he was after Snoke's death, and the First Order would still be around, just like it was after Snoke's death. Unlike Palpatine, the role Snoke played, or lack thereof, was utterly devoid of meaning, outside of influencing events concerning Luke which were completely out of character. I'm sorry, 20 to 30 years of peace does not turn a man who risked everything to save the second most evil man in the galaxy into someone who contemplates murdering his nephew over a bad dream or feeling. In fact, while trying to subvert our expectations with Snoke's death, The Last Jedi made the story less interesting since nothing changed. Could you imagine how awesome it would have been for Kylo Ren to pull a Dark Empire Luke and reveal he faked falling to the dark side, all in a desperate gamble to get close to Snoke and kill him? Not only would this be an interesting hook, since an antagonist was revealed to be a protagonist, but it would give Kylo Ren's character a lot of depth while giving Snoke a reason to exist in the story, a role to play. Like Palpatine, Snoke would be the challenge Kylo Ren had to overcome, the reason he did terrible things like killing his own father and almost killing his own mother. It could be a subversive look at Luke taking the road less traveled. Imagine Kylo learning the threat Snoke posed to the galaxy, taking Luke's lessons to heart and doing one of the hardest things imaginable, betraying everyone he's ever known and loved, killing countless people so he can save countless more. I don't know about you, dear viewer, but I'd certainly be interested to see what happens next. As far as duels are concerned, I honestly believe Return of the Jedi is the best in the series, at least in regards to the films. A few years ago, what I said today would have been a no-brainer to most fans, be it hardcore or casual, with the possible exception of how I view things, that being the duel is between Luke and Palpatine. However, things have changed. As I've gone on at length about, I feel like the comparisons between Palpatine and Snoke, outside of surface level traits, are misguided, since one character has a role to play in the film they're present in, where the other does not. Bear in mind, this is without the context of the prequels, something I did intentionally to keep the comparison between those two characters fair, and to keep the video's focus upon Return of the Jedi. If anything, I just hope I've given some of you a newfound appreciation for both a duel I find to be criminally underrated and a character who is more than just a meme. But with that said, I've been Bufar191. I'll see all you guys next time. Goodbye.